Hey everyone, in this training video, we're going to cover what not to do in a bulldozer. Yes, we see a lot of new operators come through our site. We're going to cover some of the top mistakes that we see. Check this out. Okay everyone, in this video, we're going to cover what not to do for a new bulldozer operator. So again, this is not a how to operate. We've got lots of those videos on our YouTube channel, so check those out. What we're going to do is just kind of cover, I try and boil these down to 5 mistakes that I've seen. Obviously, there's a ton of different things that new operators do. We'll kind of go through the top 5 I see, but I'm really more excited to see the comments below on if you're an operator, what do you see for new operators? What are some of the top mistakes you see? Now, at our site, first and foremost, pre-op inspection is always the most important. We've already done that on the machine. We do have a separate video on a bulldozer pre-op. And then second, we know our site. We know the site conditions, obviously know wherever you're using your piece of equipment. So we know everything there. We are safe, we are good to go. Again, I'm also not gonna go over all the controls. That is a separate video. We have how to operate, goes over every single control. I am just gonna kind of go through some of the top 5 mistakes that I see as a new operator. Okay, so I'm just gonna get ready here to go. Now, number one, this is probably, and if you've watched our how to operate, the number one mistake I see is new operators going too fast. You really need to learn to slow down as a new operator. Take your time. I kind of call it that seat of the pants feel. And unfortunately, if your machine's going too fast, your brain, you can't catch up. And that's the biggest thing is for a new operator. I know you want to go as fast as you can. You want to show the boss how quickly you can work. But I'm telling you, speed will actually make it worse for you. So sometimes slower is better. So I'm gonna back up just a little bit and show you what that might look like. So if I'm just gonna try and grade a little bit here, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this. I'm gonna keep my speed relatively fast. But as I go, I'm sitting there, I'm still doing the normal stuff I would do, and I'm trying to keep an eye on my horizon. But unfortunately, it's just really tough to hold that. My brain just can't, and I'm already doing those ups and downs there. My brain just can't keep up with that. So it's very, very key. I'm gonna back up here. This is how bumpy it is. So I go back here, this is why it's really important, have that speed all the way down. So as my speed's really, really low, and again, I know it feels for a new operator, I'm like, oh, I'm going so slow. That's what you have to do for a new operator. You have to give your brain time to react to it. Control your technique. You cannot control your technique at a high speed. It just takes a lot of experience to control that. So that's the number one is the mistake I see is people just going too fast. If I bump my speed here, you'll lose it all. As you get better, that's when you can start ramping up your speed. I'm gonna back up here, we'll go again. Okay. So that was number one, going too fast. Number 2 is not loading your blade, or I also call it, if you're closer to a finished grade, some operators will try and skim the top. That's what they're trying to just take a little bit off to make it level. The problem with that is if you don't have your blade loaded, you won't have material in front to fill in some of those dips and things like that. So often what I'll see, I'll lower my speed down here, and I'm still watching my ends, each side here. But as I'm going, I'm watching and I'm just trying to skim the tops. But you'll notice when you do that, when you're just trying to get the very top, I don't have any material in front of my blade to fill in some of those holes. So this is extremely inefficient to try and just skim the top of it. So as much as some operators are hesitant to get a loaded blade, because they don't want to, I'm going to push all that material out. Once your blade's loaded, you can slowly, gradually let it drive out. But you'll see right there, it's just not, I wasn't that smooth. So when you load that blade, and when I say load that blade, it doesn't mean you have to have that blade all the way over the top. It just means have material in front of it. Now you're always going to do that gradually, so I'm going to lower my speed. I'm just going to sink it in here. And I just want to, and this is where you can look off the sides and you can start seeing material coming off the sides. If I can get it up about an inch or so off of there, I'm going to drive into this little bit of a trench that I've got. And then once I have a loaded blade, I've got material to fill in. I can pull back a little bit because I'm driving into this and I'm looking at my horizon. The other tip that goes along with this is sometimes less is more. You see new operators doing a lot of adjustments with their blade. Every time you make an adjustment to that blade, you are either putting a speed bump in, leaving something below you, like a dip, increase, so it's sometimes less is more. But now that I have dirt, you see on my right side it actually filled in, there was a little bit of a hole there. And as I have that loaded blade, I can bump my speed a little bit then. It's a lot easier, more forgiving if you have a loaded blade than to try to skim the top. The final piece there, and again when I was saying control and do minimal input on that, if I start pulling that up, I just basically left a speed bump in front. I lost all that material in front, and now I'm going to compensate. I'm going to try and go down, but my dozer tracks are going to drive over that. So now you see my machine's going up. I can feel it in that seat of the pants where my machine's pivoting up. So that's where I say less is more a lot of times, is avoid doing too many adjustments to that blade. I'll do one more back here, kind of come through the center. So again, if you watch our Bulldozer 201, we go over more grading techniques on how to get, that's probably the most, the thing that's the toughest for an operator. And I tell people, there is nothing that you're going to do in a machine, as far as a dozer, there's no video you're going to watch, no class you're going to take that's going to make you good at this. But we do have some tips on that. Sometimes having just a little bit of a blade angle so you're not perpendicular to your tracks, so that'll avoid a little bit of that washboarding. But again, the key is slow, subtle, little adjustments. Sometimes less is more instead of making a ton of adjustments. So you see hands are off right now, little adjustments. I'm letting that sink in slowly. And then once you have a loaded blade, this makes it a little bit easier to go faster because you have material, and then sometimes the less you do, the easier it's going to be. So as you see, once I have a loaded blade and I'm a little bit more experienced, now I'm going a little bit faster and I'm letting it kind of go off on its own, the material. Bring that back. So that was our number 2, was not trying to skim the top. You don't want to do that. Number 3 is using that decelerator to control your speed. So a lot of new operators, when I say go slower, a lot of times what I'll see is a new operator will have this down. They're going along, and if you see I'm using my right decelerator and I'm going slow like that. You don't want to do that. Why? You need all of that power. When that engine is not running at full RPM, you're not delivering all that power to your tracks. So you need to control your speed with your joystick, with whatever thumb on the Komatsu. We have an up and down button here. That's why I go all the way down, and I can let my foot basically all the way off that pedal. And now I'm controlling my speed with this. My foot's off that pedal, and I've got max power coming to that. The opposite of that, and I can get a loaded blade here to really show power. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. Okay, so it's a good example right here. I've got a fairly loaded blade right now. So if I do this, if I'm basically having my speed up, but I'm trying to push it with this, you'll see I'm not touching my right at all. I'm just doing little blade adjustments here. And I can't get the same, it's reducing the power to the tracks. If I reduce my speed all the way, but let my foot off, you'll see how much more power I have right there, because the engines are running at high, at full RPMs, and then I'm able to push a lot more. So the key there is not controlling your speed with your decelerator pedal. You want to do it with the joystick. Back up. Okay, so that was number 4, was not using, I'm sorry, number 3 was not using the decelerator to adjust your speed, using your speed settings on there. The 4th one is not avoiding turning too much. We got a nice little snowstorm here that we got into. Welcome to Minnesota, right? So, not turning, kind of the same concept there. If you end up trying to turn with a loaded blade, what you're doing is you're dividing that power on your tracks to one track or the other, and you're only going to get maximum load, maximum push, with equal power going to both tracks. So if I go forward here, I'm going to load my blade. Now as I go here, if I try to turn, you can see it basically shuts down one of my tracks over there. I'm going to keep so I can move at least. And it'll stop me. So that's why ideally you want to avoid with a loaded blade, you want to try, and as important is in your setup, to make sure you're kind of going where you want that material to go. Because if you're going to try and do a turn with a loaded blade, you lose a lot of efficiency there. If you're trying to move material one way or the other, that's where you're going to want to swing that blade. So that's where if I angle it right now, one way or the other, my tracks are still carrying me straight forward, but my material will carry a little bit left. So you'll see how I'm still moving there, but I'm not as much steering, but I am getting material to go left. That's instead of trying to do this. If I try and turn right now, it's not going to work. So you want to try and maintain forward motion as much as possible when you're doing that. Go over this. Okay, number 5, final piece. And on most of these, you will see that what run the wipers real quick. On most of our how to not, some of the things are more basic on getting in and out of equipment. So with this one, a lot of times what I've seen is a new operator, they will park, they'll put it in neutral, and they'll leave the blade up in the air. Most piece of equipment has some kind of step, so whether a dozer, excavator, things like that. So you don't necessarily want to be jumping off track. So what you want to do is set that blade flat. If I leave it up like this right now, I'll throttle it down. My bucket's up, my blade's in the air. Then I'm doing this kind of awkward hop. So right now my blade is up in the air, and then for the next person getting in, it's really tough to get in. I'm sitting there trying to climb all the way up and doing that. So it's important to set that blade flat on the ground anytime. So lock levers down. Now I can get to my step right there. Okay, everyone, that's what not to do in a bulldozer. Again, we tried to put the top things we see. I'd love to see in the comments. Please enter if you're a bulldozer operator. Please put what you see for new operators, kind of mistakes they make or things you've learned. Thanks again to the Minnesota weather here with a little bit of snow. Thank you guys for watching this. See you in the next one.